He's the professor of practice at Harvard Kennedy School and the former chair of the US Council of Economic Advisors. Joins me tonight from Cambridge, Massachusetts. Good to see you, Jason, as always. Thank you, sir. Grateful for your time. I'm fascinated. Are we within striking distance of a soft landing here?
I don't think so. I think people are getting out over their skis. The labor market data looks great. But now let's go look at the inflation data. That's been running core inflation, underlying inflation, about 4.5% for the last year. Pretty consistently. We haven't seen much progress on actual inflation. I hope we get it. But there's a lot of inferences and models between here and there that I'm not sure I believe.
Right. So when we see this number that's come down, or at least is moderating, I think that's easing might be an even better word. Would you say, on strict technical theoretical economics, would you say that number has to slow down more if you're going to get job growth, if inflation is going to come down to 2%?
Look, Richard, we've never seen inflation fall by 2.5 percentage points, which is what we need, with unemployment anything like where it is now. Could we see something completely unprecedented happen here? Yes. I'm rooting for that. I hope that happens, but that's not what I'm predicting. I never like to say, if you've never seen it before, sure, let's go ahead and assume we're about to see it right now.
I guess what I then have to understand is how it plays out. Because we're going from last year into the first part of this year, and we have a gangbusters economy and this job number stubbornly high, but you've got monetary tightening now in the pipe. And I'm guessing we're seeing the effect of that monetary tightening coming out of the pipe.
Look, we don't know what would have happened without it. Without the monetary tightening, for all we know, the unemployment rate would be 2.75 right now, and the inflation rate would be 8%. So I think it's possible it worked. It just was so much strength, so much demand in the economy. The big lag that has yet to play itself out is the potential for a credit crunch. I think that's real. I had been for 50 basis points at the last meeting before Silicon Valley Bank. I agreed with the Fed. They couldn't and shouldn't have done nearly that much when this is doing some of the work for them. And we're just starting to see that work start now.
Yeah, the only problem of that, I mean, it was very telling, wasn't it? Jay Powell, the chair, actually admitting that de facto the SVB's credit crunch is a raising of interest rates. But the only problem is they can't control that.
Well, that's the question. Do I think a financial crisis is a good way to bring down inflation? Absolutely not. You don't want that crazy nonlinear dynamic and to unleash that. But do you think a bit of extra interest rates here, a bit of extra tightening lending standards there, affecting a wide range of sectors in the economy, that's exactly what you want. And it's possible that's what they're going to get.
So if you look at the IMF this week, basically slow growth for the foreseeable future, the slowest growth in decades for the foreseeable future. That is not a particularly rosy scenario.
It's not a rosy scenario. Look, the IMF, it's a perfectly reasonable forecast. These things are impossible to forecast. It's always a little faddish. Their last forecast, they thought inflation was under control. We'd have a soft landing. Now they've done this one. We got a great jobs number yesterday. So I don't quite know. What I do know, Richard, though, is I think we're probably either going to have decently high inflation or we're going to have a higher unemployment rate. I'm not sure both of those, one problem is going to be fixed without creating another.
And I've been saying since the beginning of all of this, the real test here is whether the Fed basically says, well, I think 3% is fine. We can, or 3.5% or 4%. We could all go home now. Or do they push on for 2%? Because you're right. If you go for 2%, rates have to go higher. More has to slow.
Yeah, I personally think 3 is fine. I hope that they would be fine with, say, a 2.9% inflation rate. I think 3.5 is a bit above where they should be. And, if you're at 3.5, a year later, you might be at 4. So I think they probably need to get something with a 2 in front of it. But if it's 2.99, I'll declare it a victory. I hope they do too.
Jason, I shall remind you, 2.99 is a good number if and when we ever get there. Have a lovely weekend, sir. I'm grateful to you. Thank you.